going on, guys? It is me, DevilNeverCry, and I'm back with some more DMC5 information. So I thought I'd delve into that today. There's a lot to discuss. A lot of the information comes from an interview from Dengeki that was recently translated, as well as all this microtransaction nonsense that's been going around recently. I thought I'd talk about that and give you my own thoughts. But yeah, so first of all, let's just start off with the new information we got from the interview. First off, a major shout out to the DMC5 Information Twitter account. I believe they're the ones that fully translated this themselves. I think it's a 2-man or a 3-man team. So yeah, big props to them for getting this done so fast. So first off, the interview opens up with Itsuno's thoughts on what happened at Gamescom. Specifically what we saw at Gamescom, and he's quite happy with what people think about the game so far. He was kind of nervous about the Devil Breaker system, considering there are a lot of sort of drawbacks to it that the fan base was kind of mixed on, but overall he says he's quite happy. Following on from that, he starts to delve into the missions and the mission structure. So we find out that there will typically be a single fundamental character that you can play as, but however, there will be missions where you'll be able to choose between 2 players or even 3 players, sort of potentially hinting at the fact that all these sort of stories will line up. Maybe there'll be big missions where all the characters meet up after doing their own sort of thing. So it's kind of cool. It's something to look forward to. Following on from that, we find out that the story begins with V coming to Dante. We've known this for a while, ever since the TGS trailer dropped a few days back. But according to this interview, which is why I'm pointing this out, the chronological order for the characters' involvement in the entire story initially starts with V, then moves on to Dante, and then finally on to Nero, which sort of makes sense. I'd imagine V's doing his own thing, gets into a spot of bother that he probably isn't able to handle by himself, so he decides to employ the help of Dante. Maybe Dante begins to struggle as well by himself. Maybe he underestimates the big bad dude or whatever, so he has to pull everybody else in, including Nero. Which, it's interesting, it means the stakes are pretty high for the story in this game. But following on from that, we don't get a lot of information regarding Lady and Trish. Itsuno states that he can't say much, but he does ask people to look forward to more information. So obviously there's a whole PR roadmap for DMC5, I'm assuming, where they're only allowed to drop certain pieces of information at certain events. Makes sense considering the game's 6 months away. Now, we move on to some answers here in terms of how the weapons and whatnot are going to be sort of working. Now, there's confirmation, obviously, that you'll be able to customize your loadout, obviously similar to DMC3. So in that sense, you can choose, I believe, whether you want to take 2 weapons into battle. I'm talking about 2 devil arms, or 2 guns. Maybe you want 3 devil arms and 2 guns. You can mix and match how many you want. Maybe you want to sort of take it easy because it's overwhelming you, and then once you sort of practice, you want to include more weapons into your arsenal, who knows. But Itsuno does state that it is possible for players to have access to all of the weapons at any single time. So that's pretty insane. That's crazy, because then no doubt there's going to be a lot of weapons. So the fact that you're going to be able to access all of them in real time through our gameplay is going to be interesting. Don't know how it's going to be handled though, considering if you want to, let's say you've got 4 weapons, 4 devil arms on you, you got to tap that button 4 times just to get to it. But again, we don't know much other than the fact that you can customize what you bring in. So they go into some of Dante's weapons here. So they obviously confirm that you'll be able to learn new skills for Dante's weapons. That's a given. We all sort of assume that. That's been a staple of the series. We get some information on some concept weapons. So potentially Dante was going to be able to figure skate potentially with one of his weapons, a la Bayonetta's, what do you call them, ice skating boots. But that's apparently a discarded idea. That's not going to be in the game. So, I mean, it sucks, but hey, if it doesn't work out in the gameplay, it doesn't work out in the gameplay, you know? They go on to discuss the Balrog gauntlets next. They discuss how they initially wanted to make the gauntlets and the greaves two separate weapons, but then they decided to sort of mix them into one weapon. I'm assuming maybe there was a limit to the amount of weapons you could carry. Maybe it was done for gameplay reasons. They thought maybe the game flowed better just having them be one weapon. But it's interesting to see how that concept of stances sort of evolved. We know that apparently that is the first weapon of the game they worked on for Dante. That's been confirmed in the interview, so that's fairly cool. They do obviously state that Balrog is a throwback to the Western version of Balrog from Street Fighter, who's called M. Bison in Japan. Yet the M. Bison we know over here in the West isn't exactly the M. Bison. It's interesting. You know, there's obviously different names for different regions, which is why I'm assuming there's a bit of confusion there. But hey, the fact that it's a direct callback to Street Fighter is pretty cool. You know, Street Fighter is another Capcom license, so that was the first thing people went to when they heard the name. Something interesting here that I also want to dive into, moving away from the weapon stuff. So Itsuno discusses the Devil Trigger system a little bit, because obviously we got some gameplay of that from TGS, and we find out that Devil Trigger works quite fast, so you replenish your health pretty quickly. A lot of people noted that. Some people potentially put it down to it being played on normal or easy mode, but Itsuno does state here that potentially the reason for this is that there's been mixed reports on this, with some articles saying that no healing items are in, but then this interview states that there's no Devil Star items in. We have seen none of these. We haven't seen any Vital Stars or Devil Stars, so I'm just going to assume that both of the interviews and articles I've seen are correct, and there are no recovery items in DMC5. Now, by recovery items, I mean purchasable stars. I don't mean green orbs, because obviously green orbs can be found throughout the environment. That's been confirmed. But it would make sense as to why Devil Trigger works so well now is because they've removed healing items. So you kind of have to meter manage there a little bit more than you would, say, in the older games. So that's cool. That's going to be tough for some people, I guess, but hey, who knows. They then finally close off on discussing the easy automatic mode, which, you know, for those of you who don't know, it's essentially mash the button and the game will play for you. I mean, it's there, I guess, for people who aren't really into action games all that much. Maybe they're just interested in the story, or or whatnot. The graphics, maybe that's what's got them into it, but they're not too good at the story. Sorry, not too good with the gameplay, so they throw it on easy automatic and it does all the work for you. It's a mode that I really wouldn't recommend playing. I mean, you can get by on easy or even normal mode, you know, if you're new to these games completely, just by playing the game naturally. You have a lot more control, things are a lot more fun. Easy automatic, you know, unless potentially, you know, for accessibility reasons, maybe there's a physical handicap, which means you can't, you know, actually play the game like they intended you to, then, you know, I can see why easy automatic is a thing that's needed. You know, I'm not arguing that it should be removed. I'm just saying if you can, don't bother with easy automatic. But Okabe here, one of the producers on DMC5, just talks about it in some depth. They state that the mode automatically had you dodge, or automatically had you use the breakage moves, but they had to essentially axe the automatic dodging because it was a feature that made the game way too easy and was way too overpowered, so therefore they removed it. So that's fairly interesting. That's the gist of the Dengeki online interview. It was more of a summary, so I'll leave a link to this, so that if you do want to see the interview in full, the translation in full, you can view it in your own time. But now that that's done, I sort of want to get into the whole microtransaction debacle. So, for those of you who don't know what the hell is going on, it's been confirmed that microtransactions are in the game. This is kind of obvious considering I believe when you pre-order the deluxe edition, it comes with 100,000 red orbs sort of free provided to you. Microtransactions were a thing since DMC4 Special Edition. There have been some people who even suggested that DMC4 on PC, way back in 2008 or 2009, whenever the PC version launched, also had microtransactions, but I'm uncertain of that. But I do know for sure that Special Edition did have microtransactions. A lot of people don't know this, considering they're not very overt. They're sort of just hidden in the menus, so it's not right in your face, it's not flashy. But apparently people are surprised that this is coming to DMC5, and I can understand the backlash a little bit. Why the hell would you need microtransactions for a single player game? It's a valid argument. People stating that it would alter the economy of the game, potentially meaning that they would make the price for moves or for items so inflated that you'd have to grind an unnecessary amount, sort of forcing you to have to buy red orbs because it's more convenient that way. But this is complete bullshit. I'm gonna just say that outright because we've had confirmation from Matt Walker himself, a producer on DMC5. He was in the DMC Reset era Discord thing we got going on, and I believe he was also in the DMC subreddit Discord as well, where he talked to us about what was going on and the backlash. Obviously he didn't say too much because he's not allowed to, but he did state that the in-game economy for the red orbs is going to be exactly the same as the previous games. That means they're not going to inflate the price of moves and stuff just to make you buy shit. That's not what's going to be happening. And obviously, you may or may not have missed what was going on in the Discord, so I'll leave a link to the Twitter because he did tweet about this, so you can see it with your own eyes, that he does confirm that nothing's going to change. He confirms that the game wasn't sort of built up with microtransactions in mind, and I believe even Itsuno himself did do a state in a couple of interviews that they're just there as an option, which people seem to just get ridiculously they overreacted completely, and it's just crazy because there are people out there who don't have as much time to game. Maybe they don't have as much time to devote to playing. So maybe they want to buy it, or perhaps if you're a streamer or some sort of YouTube personality and you want to sort of be the first out there to get all these cool moves or do this and that, maybe you want to purchase the red orbs. There's multiple reasons for people to want to get these microtransactions. I'm not sort of defending them in any way. It is a bit iffy, the fact that they're in there, and as people have rightly said, it kind of does show that you're kind of hinting that your game maybe isn't sort of worth playing, and it, so therefore you provide people with an incentive to just buy their way out. The thing that cracks me up the most is people attempting to say this is pay to win, and it just goes to show that these people have no idea what they're talking about. I don't know if you've played any DMC games, but buying moves, buying items isn't going to make you a good player, isn't going to beat the game for you, isn't going to make the game isn't going to win the game for you, You can buy all the moves, all the items you want. If you're a scrub, if you're bad at the game, you're still not going to win. To be honest, you're probably better off just getting the orbs naturally, because the time it takes to get them, and that time played will just make you a better player, because obviously practice makes perfect. So, getting some microtransactions, paying for that shit, and then buying a few moves will save you a couple hours at best, because obviously moves and items and weapons are all locked via progression of the game. You're not going to be able to buy a super overpowered move or weapon from the beginning of the game. That's just not how it works. But moving on from that a little bit, I want to discuss an article that was put out by DualShockers from somebody that had hands-on gameplay with this at TGS. They go into detail and depth about the prices of certain moves and whatnot, and they discuss the amount of orbs they got simply by just playing for like 20 minutes or so. And everything they've stated sort of lines up with the previous games, just like Matt Walker said they would. So nothing is outrageously priced. Again, like every single Devil May Cry, you're not going to get everything in the first playthrough. It usually takes like 2 playthroughs to sort of have enough orbs to unlock everything, because that's just how it usually is, right? Unless like you're going back and replaying missions over and over and over. But everything seems to check out just fine. There was only one move that was questionably priced, but the person who played this, the gaming journalist, they did go on to state that it was a special move for a reason. Heck, even Matt Walker didn't want to spoil what the move was, but it was not a top ability. It wasn't anything that would sort of affect gameplay quite a lot. It was just something that was supposedly considered to be just a side move, I guess you could say, not a top ability. And by that, you know what I mean. Like, it wouldn't be something stupid like Stinger, for example, which is a staple move. And also, I guess I should just say that everything I've discussed here in terms of microtransaction is just my opinion. You're free to agree or disagree. Even if you disagree, it's not like I'm going to essentially downplay your opinion or call you a fool, because at the end of the day, people have different tolerances when it comes to things like microtransactions. They're here, they seem to be harmless, but I guess, some people just wouldn't prefer to have any microtransactions at all, which, it's fair and it's valid, but I guess some people are more lenient to it because they're getting a game they've waited 10 years for. I don't know, who knows. It's been me, it's been DevilNeverCry. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, thank you guys for sticking around. I'll leave links to everything I talked about down in the description below. If you want some channel updates in regards to the original channel, or just to see what I'm doing, follow me over at Twitter. If you want to get at me and discuss some Devil May Cry, follow me, join me on Discord, and join your other fellow fans of the channel, because there's been quite a lot of good discussion in terms of Devil May Cry going on there. So yeah, I'll see you guys next video.